And risotto waits for no one. So when the risotto is ready, you sit down to eat. Risotto was one of the very first things I learned how to make. And today I want to show you how to make a corn risotto with a homemade corn stock. I think it really elevates the dish and just brings it from risotto to risotto. So I find by making your own corn stock with this recipe really adds a lot more flavor. So the first steps for this is raw corn. I've just shucked it and I'm cutting off the kernels. And I want to keep a separate bowl with pieces that are together like this because it's a perfect garnish. You don't want to keep a ton, but maybe about, I don't know, a handful. And we'll use that at the end to garnish because once we cook them, they're all gonna fall apart. We're gonna put these in a bowl and save those for later. So I have my corn stock behind me here. It's been simmering for about 40-45 minutes. You can get away with 30 minutes, but I wouldn't go any shorter than that. In there, I have 7 to 8 cups of water, cold water, 1 bay leaf, a garlic clove, some thyme, and then the cobs that I took these off of, the actual whole cob is gonna go in the pot. We're gonna bring it to a boil and then let it simmer for about 45. And we want to strain it to get all the bits out. So after you do that, we're gonna put it back into the pot because when you're gonna add your risotto and when you're making your risotto, you want the stock to be warm. So we're gonna put this back in the pot and you can see the color is kind of a pale yellow. So we have the cobs that have come out of the stock. What I'm gonna do is there's still so much delicious starch and really good kernels on there. We're just gonna kind of scrape it. It is hot, so just be careful. Just run your knife down and then you're gonna discard these. All right, so this is gonna go all back into our stock pot, which will get ladled into our risotto. You never wanna add cold stock to the risotto, it'll shock the rice. In this pot, I have a tablespoon of butter and some olive oil, and we're just gonna melt that down and we're gonna add our diced shallot. So we don't wanna cook the shallot through, we just want it to soften, just so it doesn't have such a harsh taste. While we're waiting for our shallots to soften, the kernels that I took off of the cob earlier are gonna get charred in a pan behind me. So we're just gonna put a little bit of olive oil and we're just gonna cook these through, and those will get added in at the very end so that when you're eating the risotto, you get that little bites of corn and it's a really nice texture. I always use a arborio or a superfino or a Vialani nano rice for risotto. This rice is a Carnaroli rice. It is the king of risotto. It's the Ferrari of cars. It is from Piedmont, Italy. The name actually means watercolor in Italian, and it's a nod to the fact that it's actually grown in water. It's aged for a year, so the starch develops into this sweet, beautiful taste that's perfect for risotto. So our shallots are starting to soften a little bit. We just want them to be translucent. We don't want them browned at all. So now I'm gonna add in our rice. Just let that kind of go for a minute or two until it's translucent, and then we're gonna add in our white wine. In this recipe, I use about 3/4 of a cup. That serves about 2 as a main, if that's your main, or 4 as a side. So our rice is looking good. We're gonna now add our white wine, and we just wanna burn off that alcohol. So when you take a bite of the risotto, you're not just going, ooh, wine. So we're about ready now to start ladling in this stock, and we'll just go maybe like 2, and we're just gonna keep stirring. These spoons with the hole is really called a risotto spoon because it lets the rice pass through as you stir it. So we're about halfway through our stock, which is when we wanna add in the raw kernels that we had placed aside. We're gonna leave the cooked kernels and stir those in at the end because we don't want them to get mushy and soggy. You still wanna have a bit of a crunch. Because the kernels are raw and we're about halfway done, they'll cook through by the time the rice is cooked and the stock is absorbed. So we are so close to being ready to go. Almost all of our stock has absorbed into our risotto. I'm gonna add some lemon zest to brighten it up, and I'm gonna add the juice of half a lemon, and then we're gonna taste. And you can see how the rice has just absorbed all that stock. People always think that risotto is made with cream or super heavy milk or a full fat milk. It's not. This could be a vegan recipe if you choose. You could omit the butter and omit the dairy and just do a veg stock or a corn stock. It's really, really easily moldable, which is why I love this corn risotto. So let's just taste. Perfect. We're gonna sprinkle in our finely grated parm. I think it does need a little bit more lemon and a little bit of salt. And you want this risotto to be al dente. You do not want to overcook it. So we're gonna hit it with a little more lemon. Careful to catch those seeds. We're gonna take our reserved cooked corn, stir that in. And I like to use a super fine cheese grater. You don't want chunks of parm. It won't melt in as easily. We have those Parmesan ribbons that we saved to garnish. So that will go on top. But as for the risotto itself, I use the Xylus graters. I find those are really easy to use. Some fresh ground pepper. And risotto waits for no one. So when the risotto is ready, you sit down to eat. This would go perfectly with some grilled fish, prawns. You could even have this as your main and put some like beautiful prawns on top. So that is our risotto. And then to garnish, I have a couple of these charred corn kernels. These guys. We have our parm. And you can always have more parm on the side. You just don't want to overload it. Then I like to pluck the little baby basils from the inside and then just kind of place them. And then just to finish, some really thinly sliced red chili. This dish is perfect for a night in for two, a side with guests. It's a great way to celebrate corn season, the end of summer, and really just a beautiful dish that you can make at home any night of the week.